In Module 4, we talked about how we can support comprehension in a secondary classroom through the use of texts and other things to enhance literacy. So I'm a phys ed major. Sometimes this can be hard to see how this can be incorporated in a phys ed classroom where students are active 90% of the time and are in a gym setting, and they wouldn't have textbooks or other such handouts to be given to them. So throughout this response, I will be discussing ways in which we can incorporate comprehension into the physical education classroom. There are a variety of texts that we can use in a phys ed classroom to enhance comprehension, such as rule books or manuals or practice plan examples or videos of different techniques that are being shown. This gets students a level of understanding of the skill before they even get into the game itself, as well as allows them to really get an understanding and learn in a different way, because not all students learn in the same way. But for this example, I'm going to be using a volleyball rulebook and showing how I would incorporate that into my classroom setting. For the volleyball rulebook, I thought of 3 examples of comprehension activities that would best suit the reading that we're asking them to complete. So prior to starting to read the rules, I would get them to fill out the K and W section of a KWL chart so that we can check their current level of understanding of the rules before we actually start learning the sport itself. A lot of students who are coming into a high school or junior high program have various backgrounds of physical education, and they may not have played the same games and had the same experiences with different sports. So this gives us a level understanding of the rules in the sports that the students already know. And because this varies so much by each individual, it gives us a little bit of information to really plan our lessons to best suit the needs of each student. While the students are reading the rulebook, I would want them to fill out the L section of the KWL chart with information that they learned through reading the rules. I would also want them to start to question rules that they don't understand and to make notes of terminology they didn't understand. When they make these kinds of notes while they're reading, they're making structured notes that allow me to see where they're having difficulties and be able to plan my lessons accordingly and be able to change and modify my lessons to best suit their needs, to help them learn, and to really just get them the best level of comprehension for themselves. So by getting them to complete this KWL chart and then hand it in prior to starting our volleyball unit, I know where I'm meant to start to help them learn in the way that suits them the best. When they're done reading the volleyball rulebook and after they've submitted the KWL chart, I would get the students to divide up into a couple groups, 3 to 4, to make a game about the rules of volleyball that they just learned when they were reading the rule books. This way I can see how much understanding they actually have, because they have to apply the reading they just read, to an actual situation where they have to get other students to learn the rules as well. And I can start to see where the adaptations to my lesson needs to be to best suit their needs, because you can also see where their areas of weakness and understanding come from. So therefore we can just work with where they're struggling, help them to improve, and work our lessons to best suit everybody's needs. I decided to use a KWL chart throughout the reading and prior to reading the rulebook because I felt that students need to think about the rules in a way that enhances their own comprehension of the game. So when they're able to outline what they already know, what they still want to know, what they learned from reading the rulebooks, they get to really build upon their own understanding in a way that might better suit their learning needs, because not everybody learns the same. Fisher, Frey, and Williams use the activities to help students to organize their personal inquiries about the game itself. And I would have to agree that's a great way of doing this because, as I said before, I would get students to make question marks and make notes about where they want further understanding, where they're having troubles understanding, and really just be able to voice their comprehension in a way that they don't have to speak up in class as well, because a lot of kids, especially in a gym setting, are really, really shy, especially in the younger ages where they are told to take gym because it's mandatory, and they may not be as athletically gifted as some of their peers. Furthermore, I thought that by using a KWL chart, you're getting students to outline different vocabulary they may not understand, which I also thought tied into the vocabulary instruction literacy strategy, because these kids, like I said before, these kids are coming from different knowledge backgrounds. They may not know the terminologies associated to the game, and therefore to help their understanding, their literacy of the game, their literacy associated with the game, their physical literacy, I would need to know which words to focus on, which ones to review to be able to increase their comprehension. Finally, I decided to get them to divide up into groups at the end and create their own game based on the rules of volleyball, because I thought it was similar to the obstacle course activity outlined by the Connecticut State Department of Education, as this really gets into the review the information they just learned in a way that also gets them physically active. But I also find that this ties into reciprocal teaching a little bit that was outlined by Fisher, Frey, and Williams, as it really requires them to clarify the rules of the game, ask questions when needed, and read in a way that fosters both their literacy skills and their student understanding of the game. We talked in class about how students learn in their own way, and so when we're talking about students who are more visual, more written based, they are more kinesthetic learners. This allows students to have multiple ways of learning the skills, learning the game, and really takes away from students having to be physically literate at the time to be able to learn the skills and have success. So I thought that by including the creation of this mini game at the end of the reading would further increase their understanding, as they have to find this practical way of representing the rules to their peers.